Better have two.
All right, here's this. Oh, is this the microphone?
Yeah, it's the. I didn't know either. This is the top of it.
Okay. So today I'm gonna sing for you. Just kidding. Okay. Hello everyone. Hello. It's recording for us for the online friends. I'm gonna introduce our speaker. Emma Moles is a scholarly communication and social sciences and humanities librarian at Iowa State University, and she works on a variety of scholarly communication topics related to the social sciences, including open access, Creative Commons, and author rights. And her research interests include sharing culture, feminist information theory, and information literacy. And prior to coming to Iowa State University, she earned her MLIS at the School of Information Studies at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee and her BA at University of Minnesota. And today she's going to talk about digital research and digital presence. Please welcome her with me.
Great, thank you. All right, let me check this. All right, well, welcome. So I believe you've been in this room before, so welcome back to the library. So yes, as introduced, my name is Emma Moles. I am a scholarly communication librarian here at Iowa State. I work in the social sciences and humanities sort of section of campus, and I have a colleague who covers science and technology. So by nature of being in the human sciences, I'm with you today. So I want to start with a few things, and I actually have created a research guide for you to follow along with that will provide all of the links that you need. So if you go to the university library website, which you've probably been there before, but if you haven't, off of the university's homepage, it's under academics and then library. And then once you're at the library homepage, if you click on kind of below the quick search, there's an option for research and course guides. If you click right onto that link, it will take you to a page that looks like this. And then from there, the easiest way to get there actually is to go to guides by owner. So on the top on the right-hand side. And that first owner is Office of Scholarly Communication. And then the guide for what I'm going to be talking about today is called How to Build an Academic Online Presence. So it's right under, if you click on by owner, Office of Scholarly Communication. Oh, no problem. And how to build an online academic program. So this is the guide, and I will, of course, I can send out the link afterwards. So we're going to cover a few things today, and I actually am teaching a workshop for graduate students from all over the university tomorrow here in the library up on the first floor at 3 o'clock. I believe registration is full. However, as far as workshops with graduate students, they tend to register but not always show up. So if you are available at 3 o'clock and you'd like to come to kind of a full hour and a half workshop on this topic, it's tomorrow at 3 p.m. You can simply show up, and chances are there'll be a computer available for you. So I wanted to start it in a few spots, and the most important is that actually this week happens to be Open Access Week, which open access is a topic I work on a lot here at the library. So that's looking for resources that are available to all people, not just those who have access through their university subscription. So happy Open Access Week. And kind of behind the scenes of all of this is a very strong kind of plea to have graduate students consider open access in their research careers. So a few weeks ago, I actually read this book that I have linked on the guide here. And if you click on it, it will actually take you to the call number to find that book in our library. I believe somebody checked it out this morning, but you are welcome to recall it. So this book, if you haven't read it, it's a fantastic book about going from graduate school into actually getting hired. And it's a great book. It's very approachable. The author actually writes a blog, so she's pulling a lot of her material from there. But she has a whole chapter of this book that talks specifically about your digital presence or your online presence in being a graduate student transitioning to what will hopefully be a full-time research or teaching career. So I just wanted to pull out one of the quotes that she talks about in that chapter, which is that during your job search, you'll very likely be Googled by someone on a search committee. Faculty do not usually do this to try to expose unsavory information about you, but rather to get a broader sense of your profile. Your online profile should give a richer impression of you as a candidate. So of course, when you go to apply, you likely are giving somebody your CV or your resume. What I'm going to talk about today is managing sort of an online digital presence that will be able to connect with your research itself and give people who are Googling you a better sense of who you are as a professional. And please, at any point, if you have a question, feel free to interrupt me. So we're actually going to click on the next sort of page of the guide, which is called Claim Your ORCID. And this is actually sort of a hands-on moment because we're going to actually all create an ORCID account if you do not have one. So what ORCID is, it's this fantastic system that we're seeing be incorporated into more and more things. So journal articles, they typically have a digital object identifier or a DUI. That's a unique number for each digital article. This system, ORCID, is doing that same thing except with individuals, so for the researcher themselves. So now you as a researcher can get your own unique identifier. It's kind of like a researcher's social security number, sort of. And this is actually a fantastic thing for a variety of reasons, and I want to show you. I'm actually going to show you a sample profile of one of my colleagues. So one of the science librarians here at Iowa State, Lori Pellick, I work with her. Lori has done quite a bit of research over her career, but she's also had a few different names during her career. So she has publications that fall underneath her maiden name, which is Lorraine J. Knox. She also is cited in some of her publications as L.J. Pellick. Professionally, she goes by Lorraine Pellick. So one of the nice things that ORCID does is it allows you to kind of claim all of those other names that you've published under. So people who come to this page can see that Lori Pellick or Lorraine Pellick also is known by these other names. Another great thing about the ORCID system is if you have a very common name or a name that maybe in the US or in Western countries people always get wrong, maybe they say your name out of order, ORCID is nice because it can kind of resolve all of that. So you don't have to worry about if you're a John Smith, if your name is John Smith, there's a lot of other John Smiths. This is completely unique because it gives you that new identifying number. So we're actually now going to go into the ORCID system itself to create ORCID ID for you. This is fantastic. It takes about 30 seconds and it's totally free. So if you follow the link to register for an ORCID ID, it will take you into the system itself. So it looks like a lot of you are getting to the same screen. I see it had some of you do some sort of matching game. So once you are registered, you should get to a screen that will look very similar to the one that I have up on the larger screen, of course, without your information, because you haven't put anything in yet, unless you already had an ORCID ID. So the way to make ORCID work the best is, first of all, you have control over all of this information. You are the one who's actually putting it up there. You can control what is public and what is private. So the way that they indicate that is by this little green group icon. Now, ORCID works best if you make your profile public. And we're here to talk about a digital online presence. The best way to do that is to actually have things that are set for anybody to see. You can limit some of your information. So if you don't want people to know where you went to undergrad, you can lock that specific piece of information. But the more that you share publicly, the better idea that people will have, or will be able to know that it's you. So I went through and kind of cleaned out my profile so you can see what the different sections look like. So you can go ahead now and slowly start to add pieces of information to your ORCID profile. By default, your email address will be private. And so if you click on the edit, you'll be able to see that. I made mine public, but and it should autofill Iowa State for you when you start typing it. What's that? Yeah, yep, you just have to add another section. Yep. And then add manually, click that one. Yeah. Yep. And it will it will kind of, once you put multiple ones in, it will allow you to organize which one do you want to show first, so you can put them in order. So as you're kind of filling out your profile, I'm just going to tell you a few other places that we are seeing ORCID be used. So a lot of granting agencies and bodies, so NIH, the Department of Education will eventually move on this, as well as Department of Defense, Department of Energy. All of these sort of sources of research and grant funding, they are now starting to incorporate ORCID into their profiles. And the nice thing is with ORCID profiles is that it has an open API, which allows other systems to pull information from it, which works really nice when the NIH is trying to figure out if the folks who got their grants are actually moving forward on their grants. Journals are also now using ORCID, and this is really cool because right now if you take a look at your everyday kind of typical journal article, you'll see the journal author's name, and after it maybe just the name of their institution. More and more journals are starting to now put the ORCID symbol after each author's name, and that way a reader can click on that and be directed right to the author's profile in ORCID.
Mm-hmm.
No, it gives each researcher their own number. So it's not going to be doing any of the work for you. So ORCID's not going out to claim all of your work. You instead are pulling it into your profile.
So let's say like with the journal article, probably
Mhm.
the process of getting published, they will say you have to report
Yes. Yeah. So that's how it's working with journals, is when you send in your manuscript, you can also then put in your ORCID number, and that way it knows, oh, this is you. And we're also seeing that with peer review systems now too. So if you sign up to be a peer reviewer for a journal, a lot of them are now keeping track. They're letting you put in your ORCID number as a peer reviewer as well. So I know some of you are still filling out sort of that demographic information about yourself, but I do want to take a second to talk about linking the work that you've actually done to your ORCID profile. So you'll notice kind of near the end of your ORCID profile, there's this option to add work. And ORCID is very sort of generous in which it considers work. So anything that you have that lives somewhere on the web, you can link to in your ORCID profile. And so the way that you do that is you just go to Add Works underneath the Works section. And you have a few options to do this. For the most part, you're probably going to add them manually, and I know it's not showing up on the screen there. There will be three options. So one is search and link, import BibTeX, and then you can add works manually. Once you find that add work manually, this is where you can insert any work that you have. So it could be something that actually only exists even in physical format. So if you wrote a book, you can also put the book there. But this is great for if you have, for example, a SlideShare presentation. You gave a presentation maybe at a conference or to a class, and you have it in SlideShare, you can link directly to your SlideShare account and add it to your work section. So all you have to do is pick a category to start off with. The categories are very general. So publication, conference, intellectual property, or other. The other category is gigantic. So that can include a lecture or a speech. If you started a company, you could put that there. In publication, it also gives you a long list. So anything from a book to something as ambiguous as an online resource. So if you're somebody who's created digital learning objects that exist wherever they exist, you can add that here. You can add course content that you've created. Maybe you created a fairly intense lesson plan. You have that somewhere. You can claim that work here. So it's really up to you what kind of works you want to include on your ORCID profile. I met with a few faculty members in one of the many engineering departments the other week, and they were only putting very traditional journal publications in their ORCID profile. The nice thing about it is it's up to you as to what works you want to add. I do want to point out that dissertation is actually one of the works that you can link to. So when your dissertation or your thesis is done, you can add that as one of the works. And you'll notice if you click on, when I go to Add Works and I click on Search and Link, there are a few organizations. Right now, this is a fairly small list, but there's a few organizations that work very, very closely with ORCID. And you can actually then just pull automatically your work into your ORCID profile, but it has to be a work that is included in one of these other systems. So like for engineers, they have a lot of things that are in that system called Researcher ID. And that's a very specific one that is specific to Thomson Reuters products, so that might not be applicable. So probably the best way for you to add works would be to add them manually. Yes. Sure. So the question was about comparing this to something like ResearchGate. So the difference between this system is that it is purely a linking system. So you're not uploading any of the work yourself, you're just pointing to it. So this is really almost exactly similar to a CV or a resume where somebody's not seeing your actual full work, they're just seeing the list of your works. So it's different in that way, because I know on ResearchGate you can post full articles. The other way that it's different, that this system is very open and works with a bunch of other systems. So a lot of systems are speaking to each other. Things like academia.edu and ResearchGate are closed systems. So even though something that you have in ResearchGate might be able to be picked up by Google Scholar, it wouldn't work well with another online profile that you have or the funding agencies. So this one just allows a lot of other places to work with it. And it also doesn't, the real advantage of this system is having that ID number, your ORCID number. It doesn't track your citations, nope. All right, so we're going to move off of ORCID for a while. So hopefully all of you had the chance to get an ORCID number. I mean, it's a fairly long number, right? So it's not something that you typically have memorized. I do have mine written down on my desk because every once in a while I come across a system, maybe a new journal that I'm peer reviewing for, and they always ask me, what's your ORCID number? All right, so I'm going to navigate out of the ORCID website and back to the guide that we clicked on. And so if you've lost your way in the navigation from the library's homepage, you click on Research and Course Guides, then go to Owner, Office of Scholarly Communication, and How to Build an Academic Online Presence. Okay, so we've already looked at ORCID. The next thing that we want to look at is actually on the next page. And this is something that we're not going to actually set up here, but it's just something that I want to point out because it is another way to share the research that you're actually doing. So this is a system called Figshare. And Figshare is a little bit similar to ResearchGate or academia.edu in a way. So what Figshare is, and I'm going to pull up a sample profile here. Figshare is a repository where you can put things that you've created. So this is somebody's profile. So this is my friend John. He is a PhD student in London. And he has uploaded a bunch of documents onto his Figshare account. So Figshare, it's free to sign up for. It's open, so any information that you share, anybody can access. However, you can also have private information shared so that it's not a linked out thing. But what Figshare is, it's the repository for information that you've created. So things that you can put here are if you gave a poster presentation at a conference and that poster is just in a tube in your office, if you have the digital version, you can stick that up on Figshare, and then you would have something to link to in your ORCID account, or on your website, or on your LinkedIn profile. So you can add papers here. So here are just some examples. So here's a paper that John wrote. This didn't live anywhere else, so he uploaded it here. He has posters that he's given. So here's a giant poster that he presented. He uploaded the digital copy here so that other people could see it and he could share it out. He also has file sets and data. Presentations that he's done. So this is a pretty good example, actually, of what a lot of people use Figshare for. I know I do a lot of presentations at things. I have a ton of PowerPoint files or PDF files that nobody ever sees after I present on them. Figshare is a nice way that you can upload something, and then in your ORCID account again, you can link directly to this link. And one of the nice things that Figshare does is it actually gives you a way to cite the work. And the most important thing and great thing that Figshare does is it assigns things that you've uploaded a DOI. So it gives it that unique digital object identifier. And you can see on the side, so if this was a presentation that I wanted to use in my own research, it gives me the citation here, and then it also gives me this option to export the citation into one of my data managers. So oftentimes when I meet with graduate students in the departments that I work with, which is Human Development and Family Studies, Apparel and Events, and Kinesiology, I'll meet with oftentimes early career graduate students, and they'll say, all this stuff is great, but I don't have anything. I haven't done anything yet. My dissertation or thesis isn't done. But really, if you think about it, you probably have a lot of things. People have a lot of presentations that they've done, syllabi that they've created, maybe even data that you've gathered. There's a lot of things that you have that maybe wouldn't be considered a very traditional publication. But those are all things that you can share with other people if you want to. You can share them with other people, but also you can claim as research outputs. I do just want to show you, if you click on the guide, create a Figshare account, and I go to sign up, the first thing that it's asking me for is, what is my ORCID ID? So this is just an example of another system that works really well with ORCID. So unlike when you create a ResearchGate account, it doesn't ask you what your ORCID ID is. It's not a system that is friendly with it. And this seems like a good place to say it, and this comes up a lot. There are a lot of places online where you can create profiles or track your information. It's really up to you which type of system that you want to use. So I know some people are huge fans of things like ResearchGate or academia.edu. If in your discipline or if the colleagues that you work with closely, that is a community that really uses one of those other systems, ResearchGate or academia.edu, by all means participate in that community. That works just fine. The things that I've shown are great systems because they're open and they give you as the author or creator of your content a lot of control. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next tab, which is about dissertations and theses at Iowa State. So I actually just spoke to a graduate student from the School of Education who had graduated, I think, a year and a half ago. I got an email from them with a question related to their dissertation. So it made me think of what are some great things to know right away. So a few months after you graduate, after you have turned in and finished your thesis or dissertation, you will get an email notification from ProQuest that your thesis or dissertation has been added to their database. ProQuest is a library database that we pay thousands of dollars for our students to have access to. So once your dissertation or thesis is up in ProQuest, the main readers of your thesis or dissertation will be people who have access to that database, so likely faculty and students at other universities. A couple of months after that, maybe 2 months after that, you'll get another email that will say that your dissertation or thesis is now been uploaded to the digital repository at Iowa State University. So your thesis and dissertation goes into 2 separate systems. And I'm going to talk about that second system, which is the digital repository at Iowa State. And click on it. So the digital repository, unlike the ProQuest database, is open. This means that it is something that is indexed in Google Scholar. So if you have a Google Scholar profile, after your dissertation or thesis goes up, you'll probably get alerts from your Google Scholar because it will be incredibly easy for people to discover it through Google Scholar. The other nice thing about the digital repository is that people from all over the world will be able to read your dissertation or theses. So if I'm going to pull one up here. So here is an example of a dissertation from 2014. So since July of 2014, this dissertation has been downloaded 138 times. And now the author of this, Linda Michelle Abbott, she can actually log in to her profile on the digital repository and see where all of those downloads came from, which is super nice. So it's interesting if you write a dissertation that your research took you to look at specific communities in Japan, chances are you'll probably have quite a few downloads from Japan that will show you all of that information. So it's easily downloadable, so anybody, again, like I said, would be able to download your dissertation. This is what it looks like. Yeah, yep, these are just dissertations from here. Yeah, let me actually show you that. So there's a few ways to do that. So actually you can do it even just from finding one. So when your dissertation or thesis is added, it goes into a part of this much larger community. So I can see here on this dissertation, oops. On the bottom it tells me that this dissertation is part of the Education Policy Commons, the Social and Philosophical Foundations of Education Commons, on and on. So if you actually click into those, this will actually take me into works from all over, mostly the US, but this also covers Canada, which is kind of cool too, because then it's adding your dissertation or thesis to a larger community. But let me show you where you can find lots of dissertations. I think my battery on my mouse is dying here. So from the library homepage, if you click into article indexes and databases, and the easiest way to do this is actually to search by dissertation. Tends to work a little bit better than thesis. So again, I just went to the library homepage, click on article indexes and databases, and do a find database search for dissertations. And it will pull back all of these different places. These are all databases that, for whatever reason, have almost the exact same name, but they're not. So the options here, this first database, just called Dissertations and Theses, that is a database that covers all of ProQuest's theses and dissertations. That includes, I think, only North America. I might be wrong on that, but I think it's only North America. The second one, Dissertations and Theses at Iowa State, that's obviously only Iowa State. That third one, Networked Digital Library of Theses and Dissertations, that's a global database. And the ProQuest is a repeat, that one's up there twice. Are you looking for dissertations from different regions?
Yeah, I want to see all or most of the dissertations and thesis about that topic so that I can see
Yeah.
what they did or what can I do different.
Yeah, so this is a good place to start in any one of those databases. In Europe and Central and South America, all of their dissertations and theses are open on the web. So if you just do like a Google search for like anything like European theses and dissertations, you'll find a database. Yeah. So I'm going to go back to that guide again. So that was a great question. And one of the cool things, because we have two systems here, we have that ProQuest database that your dissertation will be added to, but then we also have the digital repository, means that your dissertation, when it's done, will be read a lot more because it'll be available all over the globe. An important thing to remember about your dissertation is that you are the copyright owner of your dissertation or thesis. So unless you give your copyright away, you have the power to do with your thesis or dissertation what you would like. The grad school can explain this more, but I know when you go to give, you have to fill out a form for ProQuest when you submit your dissertation. ProQuest will ask you in the author form if you would like them to sell your dissertation. One of the things that you're doing when you sign that is you are then allowing ProQuest to act on your behalf. So it's taking away some of the rights that you have as an author. So everything that you create, one of the common myths about copyright is that you have to register for copyright. Everything you create belongs to you. You can do with it what you'd like. Unless you sign a terrible author's agreement, which a lot of journals want people to do, and I can pull up what one of those looks like. So this is an author agreement by the Journal of the American Medical Association, just as an example. So anytime that an author wants to submit a journal article to this journal, they have to read and sign this very long, fairly confusing author agreement. Journals make you do this, and if you don't read the fine print closely enough, one of the things that is happening is you are saying to that journal that you are giving them your copyright. So the journal article no longer belongs to you, but it belongs to the journal. So anytime that you're looking to publish in a journal, one of the most important things that you can do is ask, will I still be the copyright holder? I've emailed editors of journals to ask them this directly because they have those terrible policies that are incredibly hard to read. That's one of the most important things. to think about when you are deciding where you want to publish or if you want to publish in a journal is ask about that copyright. Another thing that you can do as a graduate student here at Iowa State is you can create something called a selected works profile. This is part of that larger digital repository system where eventually your dissertation or thesis will go. So this is a graduate student here at Iowa State who has this profile. It's pretty nice. Again, it's a profile that links to other works that she's done. It's free. The library will set it up for you. And after you are no longer a student, this profile travels with you. So if you end up at a different institution that also uses selected works, instead of saying Iowa State, it'll say University of such and such. If you don't go back into academia, you'll still have your profile. So if this is something that you're interested in, all you have to do is email that email address I have linked there, and they'll set it up. Again, it's nice. It's a way for people to find you. These are incredibly easy to find through Google searches. So if you're somebody who right now when you Google your name, either you find nothing that is actually related to you or kind of just junk that doesn't make sense, having profiles like this will help when people do a Google search for you to actually find something that's related to you. And speaking of profiles and Google, you also always have the option to create a Google Scholar profile. Google Scholar is so heavily used that it's really simple to create a Google Scholar profile. I have a link to some really clear instructions here on this Impact Challenge blog. It's very easy. It will do a lot of tracking for you. And once you set up a Google profile, you can actually turn it on to identify your work for you so you don't have to go in and manually add everything. So this is an Iowa State professor who I knew had a nice looking Google profile because she's put in her biography in her picture. So that's just another option to create a digital presence for yourself. I'm going to jump real quick, and then I'm going to ask you if you have any questions. So I'm just going to show you this, and then I'll send out the link later. And I know this has come up. So like I said, one of the most important things to think about when you are deciding to publish or where you are deciding to publish is to think about what rights they will give you as an author. A lot of full-time faculty members who we have here at Iowa State, they've signed away all of their copyright, which means they can no longer do anything with their article. They can't post it on their website. They can't email it out to all of their students. So that's incredibly important to look for. I do want to also show you this page. This is specifically for open access journals, but it's actually applicable to any kind of journal. So if you're somebody who's looking to publish in a journal, there's a lot of tools that you can use here at the library to discover which journals would be best for you. So it kind of works two ways. I know for some people, they have a journal in mind of where they would like to publish. Other times you might get just emails, phishing emails that say journal of something is open for, has a call for papers. Would you please consider publishing in our journal? Sometimes those journals are great journals. Sometimes they're sham journals. They could be journals that want to rip you off by charging you an incredibly high fee in order to publish with them. Or they're just journals that aren't properly peer-reviewed. So these tools listed here, especially Cabell's directories, and I don't know, I talked to Susan Vega Garcia, I couldn't remember if she had shown you this, but what Cabell's directory is a periodical or journal directory that you can type in the name of a known journal. So if you get an email from a journal, you can type it in here and it will tell you information about that journal. Let's just So here's two different journals right here. So this one, Active Learning in Higher Education, it gives me the acceptance rate of the journal. So this journal accepts 95% of its submitted articles. If I click on journal details, it will also tell me that this comes out 3 times a year. It has a blind peer review process. And it will give you the contact name of the editor of the journal. So this is a nice tool to check if you get an email from a journal that is asking you to publish with them. Again, this is a tool that the library pays for. So once you are no longer a student, you wouldn't have access to this unless a new institution that you're working at does have access. Well, with that, I'm going to see if you have any questions remaining. I know that was kind of a lot. The main point is to think about which online systems do you want to participate in. I think you could probably create a new profile in a new system every day if you wanted. There's so many. The important thing is to pick one that is trustworthy and something that's actually going to be discoverable by people who are looking you up or are interested in reading more research that you've done in the past. Any questions? Any systems that you're currently using that you really like or really hate? Oh, one recommendation. Honestly, I would probably go with something that a lot of people use, even something as simple as LinkedIn. The great thing with LinkedIn now is LinkedIn actually allows you to connect to work that you've actually done. So if you have things in SlideShare, if you have something maybe that you share on Figshare or in the digital repository, now you can just add the link of your work there. It's not my favorite system, but it is one that I know a lot of people look at, and it's so easily discoverable in Google. I know my LinkedIn profile is always at the top when I search my own name. If you're going the research route and you know that you will end up having a lot of research outcomes, I would say Google Scholar. It's the most used in the social sciences and humanities, and you can use it with a lot of other systems as well. Great, so I hope you set up one of those profiles. Again, if you want to come back to that guide anytime in the future, it's just under research and course guides, and it's called How to Build an Academic Online Presence. So you're welcome to check that out at any time. If you have more questions about dissertations or theses, those will be addressed at Friday's workshop. So if you can attend, that would be great. Otherwise, I can always forward on other information about what it means to have an open dissertation or thesis.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.